Lights, cameras, dark secrets? Hollywood, known for its larger-than-life celebrities and blockbuster entertainment, hasn't always been the glamorous playground we imagine. Behind the glitz and the glam, it harbors some of the darkest scandals in history. Scandals so shocking that the industry itself tried to bury them. But just how deep do these secrets go, and how well were they hidden? Stay with us as we dive into the underbelly of Hollywood to uncover 10 of the worst scandals the industry tried to keep in the shadows. Fatty Arbuckle. Roscoe Conkling Fatty Arbuckle, born on March 24, 1887, was one of Hollywood's first megastars. This guy wasn't just famous, he was a legend and even mentored legends like Charlie Chaplin, Monty Banks, and Bob Hope. As a silent film actor, director, and screenwriter, Fatty was raking in $1 million a year from Paramount Pictures, which, by the way, is over $15 million today. He is known for his baggy pants, suspenders, and undersized bowler hat. By 1921, he had starred in over 150 movies. Weighing about 300 pounds, Fatty was known for his slapstick humor and surprising ability to pull off complex physical stunts despite his size, not to mention his legendary pie throwing skills. However, everything would take a turn for the worse in 1921 when the fan favorite actor would become part of one of the first ever Hollywood scandals. On Labor Day 1921, Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle took a much needed break from his hectic filming schedule, heading to San Francisco with friends Lowell Sherman and Fred Fishback. After suffering burns in an on-set accident, he was ready to unwind. The trio checked into the St. Francis Hotel, booking 3 rooms, 2 for staying and 1 for partying. As the night went on, the party got into full swing with several guests, including 30-year-old aspiring actress Virginia Rappe, who had known Arbuckle for years. But the fun quickly turned tragic when Rappe fell seriously ill in Arbuckle's room. She was hospitalized 2 days later. This was when things took a very dark turn. As soon as Virginia Rappe was admitted to the hospital, her friend, Bambina Maud Delmont, claimed that Arbuckle had raped her. This was terrible on its own, but things only got worse. Although the doctors found no evidence of the activity, Rappe tragically died on September 9, 1921 from a burst bladder. The very next day, Arbuckle was arrested for murder and denied bail. So how did Hollywood rush to defend their star? Not at all. Instead, Hollywood's elites quickly distanced themselves from Arbuckle, fearing that the scandal would damage their own reputations. Studio bosses ordered everyone to avoid supporting him, and even when big names like Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton tried to stand by him, they faced backlash. Most people stayed silent, too scared to jeopardize their careers, leaving Arbuckle to face the storm alone. But that wasn't all, as the media, led by William Randolph Hearst, blew up the story, turning Arbuckle into a villain to sell more papers. The Hollywood's executives quietly let the scandal play out. Why, you ask? Well, at the time, Hollywood was under scrutiny for its wild, immoral behavior, and the industry was eager to prove that it could be respectable. So Arbuckle was sacrificed to save face. Although he was eventually acquitted after 3 trials, his career and reputation were destroyed, and Hollywood had sent a clear message. No star was safe when the industry's image was at risk. But compared to Fatty Arbuckle, the next scandal was definitely a wild one. Alfred Hitchcock. Taken to an unexpected level, Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense and one of the most successful directors ever, actually had his own dark secrets, ones that Hollywood preferred to sweep under the rug. Known for his genius in directing masterpieces like The Birds, North by Northwest, and Vertigo, the director who inspired countless others was also infamous for his obsession with leading ladies, an obsession that often crossed very disturbing lines. In a plot twist, Hitchcock himself couldn't have directed. The scandal that had been hidden for many years came to light when actress Tippi Hedren, star of The Birds, revealed Hitchcock's predatory behavior, which was extremely disturbing. You see, Hedren claimed that Hitchcock not only sexually harassed her, but also sabotaged her career because she would reject his advances. Hitchcock also attempted, on one occasion, to grab and violently kiss Hedren in the back of a car as they drove onto the set. This wasn't just insane, it was simply unacceptable. But here's the plot twist Hitchcock was banking on. Hollywood, always keen to protect its legends, played the classic misdirection game. So, instead of addressing the claims, the industry focused on Hitchcock's cinematic brilliance, looking over the sinister side of the man behind the camera. As soon as the allegations came out, PR teams went into overdrive, spinning stories of Hitchcock as a misunderstood genius, while the truth simmered quietly in the background. In actuality, Hedren's accusations could have been the scandal of the century, but as expected, the Hollywood machine turned the narrative. making it more about the starlet's struggle with a difficult director than a powerful man abusing his influence. He even went on to win an Oscar. This is classic Hollywood. Sweep the dirt under the red carpet and keep the show going. Before you make up your mind that it doesn't get any worse, you should know that compared to the next person, Hitchcock is a saint. Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein is a man who needs no introduction. We've all seen his movies, including cult classics like Pulp Fiction, the Academy Award-winning Shakespeare in Love, and the extremely popular Sex, Lies, and Videotape. He was the master of movies, the kingmaker of Hollywood, the guy who could turn nobodies into Oscar winners, and apparently a sexual predator who used his power to silence victims and bury allegations deep in the Hollywood hills. For years, Weinstein's behavior has been an open secret, Hollywood's worst kept one. Everyone knew, but the industry, terrified of losing its golden goose, kept their mouths shut. As such, A-listers, producers, and even entire studios played along, throwing glitter on the mess to keep it hidden. They tossed out NDAs like candy and quietly settled lawsuits to keep the truth under wraps. But when the truth finally came out, it was explosive. And it was all thanks to the Me Too movement. In October of 2017, the New York Times and New Yorker dropped bombshell reports. More than a dozen women accused the once untouchable film mogul of sexual harassment, assault, and even rape. What had once been whispered about for years was now in the glaring spotlight, and the industry was in full panic mode. But as you would expect, Weinstein did not go down without a fight. He denied everything, claiming all encounters were consensual, while Hollywood scrambled to distance itself. The guy was dismissed from his own production company, kicked out of the British Academy of Film and Television Arts, and even the Oscars board gave him the boot. It was every man for himself now, and Weinstein was left to twist in the wind. He went from an untouchable mogul to public enemy number one, and the industry that had protected him for so long scrambled to distance itself. But it was too late. The cover-up was exposed, and the dark underbelly of Hollywood's glamour was laid bare for all to see. But that wasn't the end, because Weinstein still had a trick up his sleeve. He hired Black Cube, a shadowy intelligence firm, to silence his accusers and spy on journalists. They used fake identities and psychological warfare to keep the scandal under wraps, but it was too late, and Weinstein was arrested in 2018 and charged with rape and sexual assault. After 3 trials, Weinstein was found guilty in 2020 and sentenced to 23 years in prison. Hollywood's former kingpin was dethroned, leaving his empire in ruins. Even after Weinstein's conviction was overturned in 2024, the damage to his reputation was irreversible, and his secret was out. At this point, you might be thinking, it can't get worse than this, but it does. It gets way worse. And the next person is simply diabolical and worse. He got away with it. Jimmy Savile. When you first see Jimmy Savile, it's almost impossible to imagine him hiding any dark secrets. The guy was everywhere, hosting Top of the Pops, fixing dreams on Jim'll Fix It, and altogether charming the pants off the public. However, little did we know that Savile was living a double life, one that Hollywood and the BBC desperately tried to bury. You see, Savile had free reign over at the BBC, rubbing elbows with rock stars and royalty. But it turned out his real playground was the vulnerable, the teenage fans of his shows, and even the kids in hospital wards. The worst part is that the rumors swirled for decades, whispering that something was seriously off about this guy. But like a twisted joke, every time someone tried to blow the whistle, it was swept under the rug. The man was effectively untouchable. There were close calls, like in 1978, when John Lydon of the Sex Pistols dropped a bombshell in an interview, hinting at Savile's evil secrets. "I'd like to kill Jimmy Savile," he said, knowing full well the BBC would edit it out, and they did. The BBC, it turns out, was more interested in protecting their golden goose than in the truth. When Savile died in 2011, tributes poured in, but just as quickly as the world mourned their hero, the truth came crashing down. Shocking the world, allegations of abuse piled up with hundreds of victims spanning 6 decades. In the end, more than 450 people came forward, showing the world that Hollywood and the BBC had spent years hiding the monster in plain sight, all to keep their cash cow alive. The scandal wasn't just about one man's horrifying crimes. It was about how far the entertainment industry would go to protect its own, leaving a trail of victims in its wake. Now, it's one thing to hide a celebrity's actions, but it's another to hide who they were, and that was the sad case of the next celebrity up until he died. Rock Hudson. If you don't know him, then you missed what the definition of a beautiful man truly was. Rock Hudson, the all-American heartthrob with a jawline carved by the gods and a smile that could melt hearts, was Hollywood's golden boy in the 1950s and 60s. He was one of the most popular movie stars of his day, with a film career spanning more than 3 decades and a major part of Hollywood's golden age. Seen as the 1950s image of a true man, he appeared in 1954's Magnificent Obsession, followed by 1955's popular All That Heaven Allows, and 1956's popular Giant, for which he was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor. But beneath his dashing exterior and swoon-worthy roles, Rock was hiding a secret that could have shattered his career in an instant. He was gay, a fact that Hollywood went to extreme lengths to keep buried. You see, back in the day, the mere whisper of homosexuality was enough to send studio executives into a full-blown panic. So, what did they do? They created a smokescreen of fake romances, setting Rock up with Hollywood starlets like Phyllis Gates, who even became his wife in a marriage that was, let's be honest, more of a business arrangement than an actual love story. The studio machine churned out stories about their love, making sure the public saw Rock as the epitome of a straight, rugged, masculine man. But in reality, Rock's life was a tightrope walk because, behind the scenes, he lived in constant fear of being outed, a reality that was as tragic as it was ironic for someone who was adored by millions. Despite the charade, whispers circulated, but Hollywood's power players kept them under wraps, knowing that the exposure of Rock's true self would spell disaster, not just for him, but for the entire illusion that they have created. The cover-up was airtight until it wasn't. The truth finally surfaced in 1985 when Rock became one of the first major celebrities to die of AIDS, forcing the world and Hollywood to confront the secret they worked so hard to conceal. The revelation of the secret shook the industry, exposing not just Rock's hidden life, but also the lengths to which Hollywood would go to protect its image. Marilyn Monroe. The 1950s were famous for rock and roll, television, and superstars that simply made you go wow. The female version of Rock Hudson, Marilyn Monroe, was perhaps the biggest sex symbol of the era and an extremely successful actress and model to boot. During her iconic career, she spent a decade as a top-billed actress, well known for her humorous blonde bombshell roles. By the time she passed away in 1962, her films had made almost $200 million, which is equivalent to roughly $2 billion in the year 2023. But Marilyn wasn't just a bombshell, she was Hollywood's golden goose. Sadly, however, behind that dazzling smile was a woman slowly unraveling under the weight of fame. Like many actresses, the industry had her on a relentless treadmill, pushing her from one film to the next, milking her image for every last drop of glamour. And let's not forget the ugly side of that fame, as Marilyn was overworked, underpaid, and often treated like a disposable commodity. Hollywood was truly ruthless. They knew how to play the game and use Marilyn's image to control her. So whenever she pushed back, trying to break free from the dumb blonde roles or stand up for herself, the studio would turn on her. They'd leak rumors, blackmail her with personal secrets, and basically keep her trapped in a cycle of dependency and exploitation. But that wasn't even the worst part, because the real kicker was the fact that Marilyn knew too much. At this point, it is common knowledge that Marilyn was tangled up with former President John F. Kennedy before his assassination. But the truth of the matter was, she wasn't just tangled up with JFK. Oh no, it was worse, because she had dirt on some of Hollywood's biggest players, powerful men who weren't about to let their secrets slip. But the story gets worse, because as for her mental health deteriorating, they tightened the noose, isolating her further, all while using her star power to keep the money rolling in. And then it all came crashing down on August 5th, 1962. Found dead in her home, the official story was suicide by overdose. But Hollywood's fingerprints were all over the story, and whispers of foul play, of a cover-up to protect the powerful, grew louder. The industry, ever so good at crafting narratives, quickly stepped in to hush the scandal. They spun her death as a tragic end of a troubled star, all while quietly wiping away any trace of damage that they've done. Today, she is still celebrated for her looks and her roles in movies, but as usual, no one ever really talks about the men who drove her to the brink of destruction. Despite all that, this still isn't the worst story, because the next celebrity still has an active warrant out for them: Roman Polanski. In the late 70s, Roman Polanski, the famous Oscar-winning director with a talent for mesmerizing audiences, found himself entangled in a scandal that even Tinseltown couldn't fully bury. It all started with a photo shoot that turned sinister. In a shocking twist, Polanski lured a 13-year-old girl, Samantha Geimer to Jack Nicholson's house, promising her a career boost, but delivering something far darker. He pumped her full of champagne and quaaludes, or methaqualone, which is a hypnotic sedative, before doing the unthinkable and assaulting her. When the story broke, Hollywood's reaction was a masterclass in damage control, as some of the industry's biggest names rallied around him, not to condemn him, but to defend him. They tried to paint the incident as a misunderstanding, urging the public to separate the man from his art. Polanski, however, sensing the legal noose tightening, fled to Europe, where he's remained ever since, living in the shadows even though he is still celebrated in certain circles. The craziest thing is that he still has an active warrant today, and there were more victims than we ever imagined. Polanski's skeletons did not stay in the closet, as decades after his flee from the USA, more women came forward, accusing Polanski of similar predatory behavior in the 70s. As you can imagine, each new allegation chipped away at the carefully constructed facade of Hollywood support. Yet the industry's hypocrisy was still glaring. As well as they whispered about his genius, they turned a blind eye to the growing list of victims. Even now in 2024, as Polanski faces a civil trial for yet another assault allegation, the industry still continues to hide its monsters behind the glittering curtain of fame. After all, he still won the Academy Award for Best Director in his 2002 film The Pianist, while he was hiding, along with an Oscar, the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival, and multiple Caesar Awards. Kevin Spacey, star of hit movies like 1996's A Time to Kill, 1997's LA Confidential, 2006's Superman Returns, 2011's Horrible Bosses, and the iconic 2017's Baby Driver. Kevin Spacey is a man who has charmed Hollywood across multiple generations. He was a charming actor who could play anything from a criminal mastermind to a ruthless politician, with a smile that made you think he was untouchable. Kevin is what you would call a fan favorite, with 2 Academy Awards, a BAFTA Award, a Golden Globe Award, a Tony Award, and 2 Laurence Olivier Awards, as well as nominations for 12 Emmy Awards. But behind the scenes, there were whispers, secrets, and some pretty unsettling allegations that would eventually bring his empire crashing down. It all started with Anthony Rapp, who bravely stepped forward in 2017 claiming Spacey had made sexual advances on him when he was just 14 years old. Now, this was more than just a minor accusation. It was the first crack in Spacey's carefully crafted public image, an image that was completely far from the truth. But here's where it gets juicier. Instead of addressing the allegations head-on, Spacey tried to distract everyone by coming out as gay. Talk about misdirection. The world was stunned, but not for the reasons he had hoped. Hollywood, of course, was quick to act, but not in the way you think. For years, the industry had turned a blind eye to Spacey's behavior. Rumors? Sure. But nobody wanted to mess with a star who brought in the big bucks. So, they swept it under the rug, and even when more victims came forward, the powers that be were more concerned with saving their own skins than delivering justice. Finally, when the dam broke, Spacey was dropped from projects faster than you could say House of Cards. But the real scandal here was Hollywood's years of silence. They knew. They covered it up, and when the truth became undeniable, they pretended to be shocked. It's classic Hollywood. Protect the brand at all costs, even if it means sacrificing the truth. Michael Jackson child abuse. As far as high-profile cases go, this was way up there. The king of pop, human rights activist, and the man everyone wanted to meet. Michael Jackson, in his prime, was a man even Google compared to being as famous as Jesus himself. But behind the glittering gloves and moonwalk magic, there was a storm brewing as whispers of child abuse started circulating in the early 90s. But Hollywood couldn't let their golden goose get cooked. And so, when a 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler accused Jackson of abuse in 1993, the industry went into overdrive. Lawyers were called, hush money was allegedly paid, and the case was quietly settled out of court for a reported $23 million. But as usual, here's where it gets very juicy. Because Hollywood didn't just sweep it under the rug, they threw the whole rug out the window. Turning everything on its head, skeptics had a field day with the case as they pointed fingers at the Chandlers, claiming it was just a money grab, a plot to milk the megastar dry. But the damage was done, and Jackson's career took a hit, and as you can imagine, Hollywood kept its distance, tiptoeing around the scandal like it was a landmine. Fast forward to 2005, and boom, Michael is back in court, facing more accusations. This time it's a media circus, but Hollywood is still playing its cards close to the chest, silently watching as the king danced on the edge of ruin. In the end, even though he was acquitted, the shadow of the claims never left him, as he was left to dry, and his scandal was milked by the very industry that made him. If you think that was bad, the next one might have you scream with rage, because it just doesn't make sense. Leah Remini. Hollywood's filled with wild stories, but Leah Remini's saga definitely takes the cake. Once Hollywood's darling and devout Scientologist, Leah suddenly became the church's biggest nightmare when she decided to release an expose of its inner workings. Now, this wasn't just any expose, as Leah was a former insider with front row seats to Tinseltown's biggest secrets. And oh, did she spill them. It all started when Leah began asking too many questions like, where in the world was Shelley Miscavige, the wife of Scientology's elusive leader? But what she uncovered was way more sinister, as she found a twisted web of manipulation, abuse, and secrecy that shook her to the core. Leah's subsequent exit from Scientology was like a Hollywood bombshell, shaking the industry to its foundation. The church, after all, was no joke and had its hooks deep into A-listers like Tom Cruise and John Travolta, so when Leah started talking, Hollywood's response was deafening silence. Shocking, right? Especially when she revealed how the church dished out brutal punishments and cut off families through disconnection. But Leah was not done. She exposed how members were bled dry for donations, with some even being pushed to financial ruin, and how the church used its celebrity members as shiny pawns to cover up its darkest secrets. Hollywood, the land of drama and scandal, suddenly clammed up as studio heads, probably scared of crossing the wrong people, were all about keeping the peace rather than seeking the truth. As Leah dropped her bombshell memoir and explosive docuseries, Scientology and the Aftermath, the church went into full-blown panic mode. And like stink on skunk, smear campaigns popped up as old friends turned into enemies, and Hollywood's elite still remained suspiciously quiet. But Leah kept going, unshaken, while Hollywood tried to bury the scandal. The public could not look away after all. The truth was too juicy, too shocking, and too real. In the end, Hollywood's attempt to keep the scandal under wraps only made it all the more explosive. And there you have it. 10 of the worst scandals Hollywood tried to hide. From hiding the dark deeds of celebrities to leaving them out to dry, the bright lights at Hollywood definitely cast the darkest of shadows, as no one is safe from its antics. But what do you think? Which scandal was the worst, and which one did we miss? Let us know in the comments section below. And while you're at it, why not leave a like and subscribe if you thought the video was shocking? Make sure you don't miss out on our next video.